Okay, good morning. This is the Gardener community meeting. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, today we have a packed agenda. So first, Prashanth will talk about enhancements in Machine Controller Manager and Autoscaler. Then we have Minchao Wang. He will talk about etcd backup and restore for Alicloud. And then we have three topics about the dashboard. First, Lukas with scheduled hibernation and managing worker groups. Then some other updates, and then Holger will talk about login with token. And finally, we have Pablo from SUSE with a work in progress for JeOS. So Prashanth, I think you can start.
Okay, thanks, Matthias. Okay, I hope you guys can see my screen now.
Yes.
Okay, so I have a very short update on some latest changes in the MCM and autoscaler. With enhancements, what we have, one major change is that the machine CRDs now have a status sub-resource. What this means is there might be some manual efforts required in the Gardener. I think the Gardener release note has captured it. Most of the migration should be seamless, but just in case, just check the Gardener release notes if you have some queries. And what we also have, I think this is one issue we were working on earlier. So the during machine deployment rolling updates, the older machine gets a prefer no schedule taint on it now. That way, scheduling on older machines will be avoided during rolling updates. Then we have a few fixes for the MCM. One of which is we had an issue where the fetching of metrics were failing for failed machines. This was a bug introduced when the metrics PR was integrated. We have a fix for this, and is part of the latest release of the MCMs. And the auto-scaling now works properly for Alicloud. Alicloud driver was already integrated in the MCM, but it had an issue while generating the provider ID. So the driver generates the right provider ID, and even the autoscaler had an issue with trying to make use of while trying to pinpoint machines with larger names. And this has also been solved by making use of these owner references now. This is also part of the latest autoscaler release, which is I think 0.4. And then there was a null pointer exception on Azure, which was a very corner case where, say, for example, if you went and deleted your subnet ID or your resource group itself for Azure for a cluster backing. So MCM went into this exception handling. So this was fixed in the MCM release as well. These are most of the fixes and enhancements. What we are currently working on is we are working on the final stages of a gRPC based out of tree driver. Hopefully we should have it in soon, and maybe in the next or next to next community meeting we'll just talk about it. We'll give you an overview. What we also have is Azure driver update. This PR is credits to Christian from Microsoft. And what he's done is he's tried to make use of ARM deployments while creating machines and some optimizations, which should help us with better spinning off of machines and deletion of machines in Azure. And lastly, we have most of our work lately has been on unit tests. We are trying to focus our efforts on testing, and just not unit tests, testing in general, and both the machine controller manager as well as the different drivers that are available. Yeah, those are most of our works. Any questions, queries? If not, that's it from our side. Thank you.
Thank you, Prashanth.
Hold on, the driver from Christian, Prashanth,
yes.
the enhancement.
you're just in the final stages of testing that, and before it gets merged. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
But I've seen that is an in-tree implementation, and then we'll help to externalize it as well. Or what's
Yes.
the plan with that?
So the plan is right now, since we're still working on the out of tree, we have asked the PR is on the in tree, and probably will get merged. And once we are trying, we'll push all of this code out of tree, and that's when we've requested Christian already from Microsoft to kind of support us with it, in the sense that maybe we'll do most of the work. We'll take help from him during the review and things like that.
So the current proposal with out of tree still has some challenges, I see, or is not final yet.
Yeah, we might need a week or two to make it a final, I guess.
Okay.
Just we are in the last stages of testing it out.
Okay. I was just trying to understand. Well, okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thanks, Prashanth. Minchao, can you take over?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, good morning. Okay, so glad to have the chance to show the demo about the etcd backup and restore on the Alicloud. Okay, because this is my first time to attend this kind of meeting, I will give you a brief introduction about me. My name is Minchao Wang from CP Core China team. And currently, I and Jerry and Erica are doing the work of enable Gardener on the Alicloud. etcd backup and restore is one part of the Gardener project, and it has already enabled on AWS, Azure, GCP, OpenStack, and etc. Last month, I submitted one pull request and make it enable on the Alicloud. Now I will show you a demo and to how to configure it and work with etcd on Alicloud. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay. Share. Yes.
We can see it now.
Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, first we need to have a look the YAML, how we create one namespace. Sweet. Create one namespace. Yes. And etcd-store. And then, because we needed to parse some secret into the etc backup restore, and we needed to apply the secret file.
Can you maybe increase the font size?
How about now?
Did you change anything?
No, the
Hello?
font size, not the volume.
Okay, sorry. Sorry. Sorry.
This was the wrong direction. Okay, that's better.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, let's first see the content in the secret, because there's some credential yet. So we will have a look at the example of the secret. Okay, let's have a look. If we want to enable the etcd backup and restore on the Alicloud, we need to push 3 values. The first is the Alicloud endpoint. It is the entry point of the bucket, and the next 2 is the access key and the access key secret, which can create by the Alicloud account. Now, next, let's apply the stateful etcd stateful site. We have a look. What inside it? It has two containers. The first is the etcd, and the second one is the sidecar etcd backup restore. And because we needed to show the function upload the snapshot, so we set the delta snapshot period to the 10 seconds, and the first snapshot will be scheduled about 1 hour. Now we apply it. It's great. Let's have a look. It's container creating. Describe. Yes. It's running, and let's have a look what inside, what log of the etcd backup restore. Okay, I think it maybe have created the full. Let's have a look. Initialize. Okay, the data folder has been initialized by the etcd backup restore, and the full snapshot has been created and uploaded to the object storage service on the Alicloud. Let's have a look. Refresh. Yeah, the folder has been created. We can see the first snapshot has been created. We can call it the initiated snapshot, the first snapshot. Now let's go inside the doc. Let's go inside the container. Sorry, let's go inside the container and put some value into the etcd. Okay, it's error. Yes. Okay, sorry. Okay, now let's, because first let's using it, and we can, as a full, there are no value stored in the key named full, and now we can put it. First one, the first for one is hello for one, and put the second value, then the for two, yes, for two, and the for three. Yeah, let's have a check. For one, yes, for one, for two, and for three. Okay, now let's have a look at the. Let's have a look at the OSS. What have been created? Now we can see the data snapshot has been created and uploaded to the OSS store. So because it was being scheduled within 10 seconds. So there are two data snapshot has been created and uploaded. Okay, now let's do something to capture the database. Let's go to the bar, etcd, and the data. Yes. Okay. The new .etcd is the data folder where the etcd stores its data, and let's remove it. Remove it, and the container will create. And the container will crash soon. Okay, the container will crash soon. Let's exit. have a look at. Yeah, the container crashed. Yeah, only one container is running now, and the etcd backup restore will help to restore the data have been uploaded to the OSS and restart the etcd again. Okay, I think it has been started. No, let's go inside to have a look again. Yeah. Export, and then let's get the value to see. Yes, the value has been stored. You can see the value. Yes. So we can, this is can confirm the etcd backup restore help to restore the data from the, restore the latest data from the OSS store to our local, and it's okay. Okay, that's all. Any
Great,
questions?
Are there any questions? Okay, if that's not the case, we can go to the next topic.
Okay.
That's Lukas.
Yeah. Can you please unshare your screen? Okay. Okay. Yeah, I want to present two new dashboard features today. So the first one is scheduled hibernation, and the second one is about managing worker groups. So the Gardener supports scheduled hibernation for some time now, but until now it was not possible to configure it with the dashboard user interface. So, and this is now the first thing that I want to show. So in this dashboard setup here, maybe increase screen size, there is currently the scheduled hibernation feature available, but there's no default hibernation schedule set. I will come to that later. So this is just a default list of clusters as it is today. And the only thing that's different here is that now when you create a new cluster, you have an additional tab over here, the hibernation tab, where it is possible to configure an hibernation schedule. But as no defaults are configured in the dashboard configuration, you will not get any default hibernation schedule set when creating a new cluster. It is also possible to add a schedule for an existing cluster. Just take this one here. It's possible to click on the button next to the new hibernation setting here and add an hibernation schedule. It is possible to configure on which days in a week the schedule should be active. In this example, I choose the weekdays, and I can set this cluster to wake up, for example, at 8 a.m. and hibernate at 5 p.m. This is all in my local time zone. So time zone is always related to the browser time zone setting here. Now let's save this. And you can see now that there's an hibernation scheduled for this cluster. Okay. So let's remove this again. So this is the dashboard configuration. I can increase the screen size a bit. The font size. So I now added a default hibernation schedule configuration. And in this example configuration, you can see that you can configure different schedules for the different purposes. So in this example, I have the configuration set that the evaluation clusters should always start hibernating at 5 p.m. during on weekdays, and they will never automatically start again. Development clusters in this example will start hibernation on 5 p.m. as the evaluation clusters do, but will also wake up automatically at weekdays on 8 a.m.
I don't see the time zone in here. So
yeah, that's
time
correct.
zone?
There is no time zone in here because the default hibernation schedule. So you will see later in the dashboard that always the one that sets the time, the schedule or creates the cluster, then the local time zone will be taken. So if I create a cluster here in Europe, in Central Europe time zone, then this cluster will start hibernating on 5 p.m., right? But if someone in India, for example, would create this cluster, then it would not hibernate at 5 p.m. European time, but 5 p.m. in India, right? So it makes no sense to configure a time zone here. And this is a cron tab format, so you cannot set time zones there anyway.
Okay, I was. It's a default schedule. Okay,
It's a default schedule.
okay, I was off. Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
So the production clusters in this example don't get a default hibernation schedule. You could also just leave out this line entirely. Okay, let's save this and restart the backend. Okay. So now you will notice that there are notifications next to most of the clusters. And these notifications basically tell you that the administrator configured a default hibernation schedule for this purpose or cluster purpose, and you don't have currently don't have one set, right? As we did not configure one for productive clusters, this cluster here does not get this notification. It's now very easy to set a hibernation schedule because you can just use this hyperlink here, which will take you straight to the configure hibernation schedule pop over. And here, if you now click on add hibernation schedule, you will notice that in contrast to before, where you had to define your schedule on your own manually, you will it will automatically select the defaults that are set in the configuration. And here's the time zone, right? So if I create this hibernation schedule, it will use my time zone. Okay, so save this one and go back to the project clusters. And now the notification is gone. And if for some reason you have in this case evaluation cluster that should be always on, and you don't want to get prompted for setting a hibernation schedule all the time, this is also possible. For this case, we provided this checkbox here, which is some kind of opt-out of the hibernation schedule configuration. So if I set it and go back to the overview, you see that there's also no notification icon shown. Yeah, and if you now create new clusters, the default hibernation schedule here is always set according to the purpose of the cluster. So this is now the evaluation purpose, and you see that we don't have a wake up time here. If I change to development, I will get this schedule. And if I choose to create a productive cluster, then there's no hibernation schedule set as default. This can always be changed afterwards, but this will, so this notification icons that you see here will only pop up for existing clusters. So if someone just creates new clusters with the default settings, they will never appear because the default schedules are always set. Okay. Any questions to this feature?
I have a question.
Yep.
Is it possible to have multiple hibernation schedules?
Yep. So it's possible to have multiple rules. So you can, of course, always add them manually. So you can add as many as you want. So maybe one for weekdays and one for weekends, right? And it's also possible to set multiple default schedules here. So this is also possible. So this is an array, so you can set as many as you want.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so then I continue with the next feature. Let's start here. Yeah. So you maybe all know this, or probably all know this worker configuration screen here when creating new clusters. And until now, it was not possible to change the worker groups afterwards using the UI. So you had to change them with them in the cluster spec. And now, and also we did not show the groups. So what we now have here is a new a new worker groups section where you see all worker groups configured for this cluster. Usually it's just one, but maybe you have multiple. You can click on it and you see the machine type and the selected volume type and so on, and the autoscaler settings. And it's also possible to change them here. So you can add more groups, and you can change the group. So maybe you can just try it out. Increase the autoscaler min value to 2, and I have here a watch on the nodes of this cluster. It will take a while. I mean here. Yeah, you can see that it has been changed here, and you will see in a few seconds or minutes that it will schedule a new node. So as we wait for this, I will just give you some other updates. We have a release planned for beginning of next week. So we will include the hibernation feature, the hibernation schedule hibernation feature, also the worker feature, the configure worker feature, and the things that Holger changed to the authentication. He will show the changes he did right after my talk. Other than that, we did some improvements to the web terminals. They are not ready to be released yet to the community. We're still investigating some things there. We have them internally tested and made some further improvements. And I hope that we can include them in one of the next releases. And not next week, but hopefully soon. Yeah, here in the dashboard, you see that the nodes are now in progressing state because we want to scale them up. And you can see here that it's already appeared. It's not ready yet, but yeah, I think that's all from my side.
Just a question with respect to labels. there was an increasing request pipeline with respect to being able to set labels or capture labels, which people have done manually onto the nodes. This is somewhat also connected to the machine controller. Is there some further improvement planned with that respect? I mean, we only set the worker pool label, but maybe, yeah, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so from dashboard side, there's nothing planned currently.
Okay.
Okay, so from MCM side, maybe I can talk a little bit on that. So we recently discussed the approach for this as well. So it's not only about the labels, but it's also about how to migrate the annotations and also eventually taints and tolerations as well.
Yeah.
So we do have one approach in mind, and as of now, I would say not immediately, but we do plan to implement it in a very near future. So you will see the feature in a way that you would be able to put label annotations on, and the taints on the machine deployment and corresponding machines, and eventually also the node objects will be adopting them, and they will be maintained. So even if the node objects are gone, coming back, they will always be maintained there.
Because especially now that you hibernate, you kind of, if a user has set labels, annotations, and taints and tolerations, and these are all lost once the cluster comes up. That's kind of, yeah.
That's a very valid point. We need to do it. We'll soon improve MCM to handle those things.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. So yeah. So I think that's all from our side. I mean, we will of course implement things for setting labels and stuff like that, but we have to. I think machine controller needs to do this first. Yeah. I think then Holger can take over.
Hello.
Hi.
I have to share, I think, desktop one. Okay. How do I go? Or maybe it doesn't matter. So I want to present what I have done in order to get rid of the OpenID Connect dependency in the Gardener dashboard. And I will show first how the current situation is and what are the problems with the current situation. So currently, the Gardener dashboard consists, or it still consists of two parts: the front-end part, which is the single-page front-end Vue.js application, and the back-end part, which is deployed on the Kubernetes cluster. And both parts, the back-end and the front-end part of the Gardener dashboard, has a dependency, needs to know the OpenID Connect identity provider. And the front-end part currently is responsible for retrieving the ID token from the identity provider. And therefore, it needs the configuration of the identity provider to establish a trust relation to the identity provider, and in order to validate later on the received token. And also, it's the same token used by the Kube API server, and it's the same OpenID Connect configuration which we currently use on the Kube API server. And this means we have three places where we have a trust relation or a dependency to the OpenID Connect application. And in some cases, we had problems. For example, if somebody not configured correctly the API server, you could successfully log into the Gardener dashboard, but then when you do requests with this token to the API server, it had a 403 unauthorized response, and this was a little bit confusing to the end user, and it was because of misconfiguration, but this was a common case. As you can see here, the front end send each request to the Gardener backend with the same ID token as the backend sent to the Cube API server. And this means we had stored the ID token of the Cube API server in the browser local storage, which is not a security problem because hopefully we are not vulnerable against cross-site scripting, but it's something which maybe is not recommended from security point of view. And we wanted to also to get rid of this, that we expose the Cube API server ID token directly in the browser. And another problem we observed is, for example, in the case of AKS, that we did not exactly know the OpenID configuration of the API server because we have no influence, or we cannot control it. We needed to know how the API server is configured to do exactly the same configuration in the dashboard. And in the case of Azure Active Directory, we have another problem, that because we have to access the metadata of the OpenID Connect endpoint from the browser, these endpoints needs to be CORS enabled, which is not the case for Azure. And all of this made us think about, can't we do better here? And this is now the next picture. So in this picture, this is the architecture I will show you later in the demo. We only have a dependency to the IDP or to an OpenID Connect from the Cube API server, not from the dashboard. The dashboard does not make any assumptions how the user are authenticated to the Cube API server anymore. And from the dashboard side, we use the Kubernetes token review endpoint to get information about a certain token. What is the username? What is the group? And so on. And is the token valid? And the front end does nothing. So the front end does not any validation anymore. And with this approach, we do not expose the token. I have written here token, not ID token, because it does not need to be an ID token anymore. So if we do not have an OpenID Connect, like for example in GKE, then it's not a problem. We just can log in with any token accepted by the Cube API server. And to the Gardener dashboard, once we have successfully logged in, we establish a normal HTTP session via 2 cookies, and one of these cookies contains the actual token, but this is a same site cookie, and it's HTTP only cookie, which means you are not able to access the content of this cookie via JavaScript or in any way from the browser. So we are not anymore vulnerable, possibly vulnerable against cross-site scripting or session replay attacks. And now let me come to the demo. I first show you how the front-end configuration has changed. So this is the front-end configuration for our current development landscape. And here you see that we still have here an OpenID Connect configuration, which contains all the metadata of the OpenID Connect provider. And in the new approach, we only have one property which has the information about primary login type. And here we have 2 possibilities, token and OpenID Connect. And when you have OpenID Connect configured, then the primary login type is OpenID Connect. if not, then it's via token. And now let me show you how this looks like. You typically see the same login screen, and if you press on login, then a pop-up occurs where you can enter the token. But currently I don't have a token, so I go to the same landscape via the old client. And I create in my temporary project a new service account, which has a certain token. And I now enter this token, and I'm logged in to the same account, to the same project, and I only see this project because this service account token is only allowed to access this delete me project. So this is the case when you are if you go to the my account page, then you of course see, okay, this is a service account, and you see the groups the service account is assigned to, and the session expiry of the token. And if you in the configuration, in the backend configuration, again enable OpenID Connect as a possible login method, then I will show you how it looks like. I have to restart the backend. And now the primary login type is OpenID Connect. And if I now log out, you see that you here have this link. This means this link you can still log in with a token. But if you press the login button now, you use the normal OpenID Connect redirection logic, but it's not via the front end browser, but it's via the backend, and the valid token is received by the backend, not by the browser. So this is what I wanted to show you. And with this approach, it should be possible to configure or to deploy the Gardener also on a cluster which has no connection to an OpenID Connect anymore, and we hopefully get rid of all of the problems which we had with cores and AKS and this kind of things. And if, okay, that's it from my side. We are not completely finished. If you have any questions or remarks or improvement proposals, they are very welcome. Yes, so that's what I wanted to present. Questions? Seems not the case.
Thank you, Holger.
So I don't have questions, but then this is very nice, right? Like on any of the given cluster, you can just install dashboard without having any dependency on
yes
what kind of API server they support or not. And specifically for GKE, now it becomes really simple. Yeah, that's very nice.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Very nice, thank you. So the last topic is from Pablo. Pablo, are you in the call?
Oh, yes. Hello?
It's your turn.
Okay, thank you. Just give me a second.
Holger, can you unshare?
Yeah, I would like to share
I try
just to...
I don't get the window
On the top.
back. On the top.
Yeah, on the top you have the view options. So there's a green.
Okay, give me a second.
Okay, Yeah, I found it now. Yeah,
Now it works.
at the wrong window.
Can I share my?
Yes.
I don't know how to share my screen.
At the bottom of the Zoom window, there should be a share button, right? Or in the menu.
Sorry, I'm looking for it, but I cannot find it. Oh, okay. No. Sorry, I can see how to share my screen. Just give me a second. Now I just will start. No, sorry, I cannot see anywhere this menu for.
You could try the Alt and Test as a shortcut.
Okay.
Because in the Zoom, there's a green share button.
Yes.
No, yeah, that should be there, but I'm using the.
Are you using Wayland?
Using the web version of this. The thing is not sharing. Anyway, not too lost.
Is your Linux desktop a Wayland desktop?
Yeah, the Linux desktop. Sorry.
Okay, then it will not work.
Okay. Bad news, but anyway, just let me introduce myself. Pablo Chacin, I work for SUSE. I've been working in the container group, technology group, and been around this Gardener project, looking at the project for some time now. One of the main objectives we have is to test using JeOS, which is the streamlined version of OpenSUSE, as an operating system for Gardener for running the shoot workers. As a first step in this direction, what I've been doing the last couple of weeks has been creating a development environment for running these shoot workers locally, following the same pattern that is currently offered for CoreOS. In doing so, what I have done so far is I created a background box for JeOS. I'm using a very simple image with just a little packages added for Gardener. That we see that probably 4 or 5 additional packages. It's very streamlined image. I also adapted the background file that comes from the Gardener project and simplify it just for the specific configuration that I needed for this particular box. It's important that this box is currently using the Litbeard provider for background. I haven't tested in other providers, but so far I don't see any major problem of doing that. Unfortunately, I don't have a working environment using VirtualBox, for instance, because there are conflicts with QVM, which is the one I use for my main development. And I also, once I got this image and we was able to launch that image using background, I took the operating system configuration chart that come with the Gardener project and adapted to JeOS. There were just minor changes that were required. The first one is that JeOS use Cloud Init which is different from the one that comes from CoreOS. The main difference is that the Cloud Init doesn't support specifying systemctl units. It's needed to write the unit as a regular file and then run a command for starting or enable that service. But this is a minor change. It's something that I did it manually, and it took me only half an hour or a little bit more than that. And the second was a minor change regarding the URL used in the scripts for Docker, which is located in a different directory in JeOS than in the CoreOS. So after that changes, I was able to launch a development environment with a shoot cluster running JeOS. That's currently working. And I think this is a good starting point for the development. All this, by the way, was done with the old model of the operating system controller configuration in the main controller, because there was an issue that under the new model of out of three operating system configuration controller, it was not working on the local development environment. That was fixed yesterday, by the way, and thanks for that. So my next step is probably move to that model. Now it's done with the old version. And the other pending task is, as I said before, is try to see if this will work also with other lead build provider, because I understand that people that use other development environments cannot use lead build as a provider. I don't expect major problems. That I don't know exactly how to produce that image right now, so I need to learn about that. So as a matter of summary, now I have a working development environment for using JeOS as a operating system for the shoot cluster. It works. I can deploy a shoot. I can actually deploy a workload on the shoot cluster. My next step is continuing the development of the operating system configuration controller for JeOS, what will basically require to adapt all these configuration templates, and considering the difference between CoreOS and JeOS. That is from my side.
That sounds very nice. Actually, if this you're coming next week to our location, and I guess we should also talk to our dashboard colleagues to then, if JeOS is then finally supported and a little bit quality output tested, that we include the option in the dashboard to choose JeOS.
Okay, great. Yeah, yes, actually, one of the ideas of doing this preparation was precisely because of this work. The next week, I wanted to have a development environment myself to make tests, and also to understand better how this configuration of the operating system works. And so hopefully next week we will have this configuration controller working, hopefully.
Very good, because we also have a couple of stakeholders just waiting for, and I don't know if they're waiting for JeOS or for SUSE full-fledged, but the ABAP colleagues and the HANA colleagues are basically consumers of this collaboration.
Okay,
thank you.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Pablo. Are there any other topics you want to discuss? Seems not to be the case. Then thanks again to all the speakers, and see you next Thursday. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.